All right, everyone, we're live. I feel like there's so much time that goes between these now. I feel like it's been a month since we had a Carnivore Mastermind, but it's only been 2 weeks. And we're happy to be with you all this evening on a Thursday here in the United States, various time zone, different times across the country and the world. But we've gathered together tonight to talk about our favorite carnivore recipes of 2024. I think this is going to be really fun because I'm kind of in that mode of reminiscing and reflecting on the past year. What have I learned? What's, the progress I've made? What were some of my things that I want to take into the next year? What are things I want to change? And so I got to thinking about some of my favorite recipes, the things that were really staples for me throughout this year that were like helpful as far as maintaining the day-to-day diet, sort of the things that I have on autopilot. But then there were some other things that I thought these were really fun. They came in handy recipe-wise for different occasions, different times a year. And so I thought instead of just me making a video about all my favorites, let's bring everybody together because, there's lots of great recipes. Some people are more into cooking and creating recipes than others. I'm not super into like coming up with very, elaborate carnivore recipes all the time. So that's why I brought the panel in tonight so we can all share and discuss our favorites. So, and if you're in the chat watching live tonight and you have a recipe you want to share, then please drop it in the chat. We'll bring it up and show off your recipe as well. So thank you everybody for being here as usual. And of course, if you're watching the replay, you can leave us a comment with recipes that you enjoy, or maybe whose recipe was your favorite tonight. So welcome to everybody. We may have another person jumping in. We'll see here, but kind of as usual, we'll just start out going around the circle. We'll start with Robin, Carnivorous Grandma, and I'll put everybody's names up here again because I always realize that they're not on. So give us, your top favorites for 2024. What were some of your staple carnivore meals? And what did you get all fancy with this year that you want to share as well?
Hey, everybody. Robin Heron here. I'm your Carnivorous Grandma, and I'm super happy to be able to be here with Carnivore Mastermind tonight. This topic is so huge because I have so many favorites of food. But one thing I can say about carnivore way of eating is it's so simple. So, I mean, everything that I'm cooking takes me literally 15 minutes or less to prepare. So if I talk about my top favorite thing to do, it is to take a frozen steak out of the freezer, put it in the air fryer, and cook it. And it comes out perfectly cooked in like 8 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on how you like it. That's like the most simple thing ever. I actually did this same thing with a chuck roast. Now, chuck roast is also one of my favorites. And I took a frozen chuck roast out of the freezer, put it in the crock pot, put a stick of butter on it, let it cook, and in 5 hours I had a meal. So the simplicity is really, it cannot be beat. It really just cannot be beat. So most days my meals are like that. It's like throwing a pan of bacon in the oven and, having bacon and scrambled eggs, or a steak or burger patties, something like that. So my favorite thing about the way I've been eating is how simple it's been. But there are a couple of recipes that I want to call out because they're just really, really good. And we were just kind of talking about it in the back. And one of them is Carnivore Quest's Cassie's chuck roast recipe. And it is like 3 pounds of chuck roast, 3 cups of water, 3 hours in the oven. And it comes out perfect and it's super delicious. And so if you like a lot of juice with your meat, that recipe is really, really good and super simple. You can put it on, like I'll put it on before I go to church. And when I get done with church, I'm coming back and it's ready. It's really simple and it's also super good. And then the other one I want to really call out today is there was a recent recipe that came out from Chris Cooking Nashville he did a version of carnivore bread, and he turned that into stuffing. So for the holidays, one of the big things that my family always has is stuffing, and I always used to make it. And so I thought I would try his stuffing recipe, and it was so good, you guys. I did a video on it. I'm trying to think, did I put that video out yet? I'm still working on the video. I'll try to get it out for Christmas. But it's more of a ketovore dish because it did have a mirepoix in it, which has like celery and bell pepper and onion. I can't eat those. I found that out after I ate them. But it had such a good taste. And so, there are certain like recipes, because I love to cook. I love to take other people's recipes really and modify them and make them my own. So I took Chris Cooking Nashville's recipe and I added sausage and bacon to it. It was so fire. It was so good. So that was excellent. So it was a carnivore. It was really a ketovore stuffing, but you can make it carnivore by leaving those veggies out. And I think if I make it again, I will leave the veggies out because I found that I can't really tolerate the vegetables. And so it was really, really, really good, you guys. And I really enjoyed it. So I've enjoyed a lot of recipes. I had a lot of fun with the relays that we did this year. And Christy and Nia were both part of those relays. Those were so much fun to just play with the food and figure out how to take somebody else's idea, the basic idea, and then somebody else add on. So those recipe relays were a lot of fun. And I've really been enjoying my way of eating. I'm so happy with it. I've not been missing anything. And I basically like basic food almost every single day. So I'll leave it there. Thank you, Nia.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to talk about that relay, but I'm going to let Christy since it's her brainchild. But Bruce, what are your thoughts?
Well, I've been doing a lot of thinking about cooking. Obviously, it's Chris has been Chris Cooking Nashville has been a real inspiration for me. Just getting in there and cooking things, and I married a Cajun gal, and she prides herself in her cooking, and so I've learned a lot through Chris and Food Network, and a lot of things, little things, little skills, why things happen with the food when you're cooking. One thing that I've done this year, and my favorite dish that I've done is on. I've heard a lot of people talk about. Okay, I get tired of eating hamburger meat the same way every single night, just ground meat, or hamburger patties. That's it. I've learned kind of a carnivore hamburger helper type dish with you take a pound of ground meat, a cup of 2 eggs, a cup of heavy cream, and let's see, and some shredded cheese. I use Swiss. Never been a big fan of cheddar, but you brown the ground meat really well, and then you throw in the rest of the ingredients kind of one at a time, and it turns out really nice, really good. You let it bubble for a little bit, and it's comes out pretty good. So that's one thing I've been doing a lot of. I've been doing when I first started carnivore, I guess last year, I was making a lot of cloud bread, which is okay. It's not the best bread. It's great for making sandwiches, but it's basically separated eggs, and you beat the whites, and then put cream cheese, half a block of cream cheese in the eggs, and she beat the whites up to a stiff peak, and stuff like that. And I've also been doing a lot of grilling, and and I'll get out on the grill on Sunday and throw every piece of meat I've got in the house on that grill. And once and I'll bag everything up, freeze it in one serving portions, throw it in the freezer, and when I'm ready, I throw it in the microwave, and I'm ready to go. So uh, yeah, there's no shortage of ideas for carnivore, and especially like if you watch um, oh geez, um, the gal from Canada. Um, you all know who I'm talking about. I just can't remember her name. Um, Anita.
Anita.
Anita, yes. She's got lot of really cool ideas. There's a lot of good videos all over the internet. Robin's already mentioned. Um, Robin's already mentioned one or a couple of them. So if you're getting started on carnivore keto, get out there. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of really great ideas, and you can really build off of those things very quickly, very easily.
Yeah, I agree. Ketogenic Woman, Anita's channel is one of my favorites and is also my daughter's favorite, one of her favorites. She will literally request, like, I want to watch Anita, Ketogenic Woman. And she can like start to type it in now and like find the playlist. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're 4. But yeah, so good way to inspire your kids too, I guess, with fun recipes. So thanks. All right, we'll go down to Rick next.
Well, as you know, I'm not a big one for cooking fancy recipes or any of that stuff. About the fanciest thing I've ever made is heart attack buns, which are basically just cheese, pork rinds, and eggs, kind of whipped up and then baked, usually in a small toaster oven because I don't want to turn on the big oven because it'll heat up the whole house. But my specialties are generally a ground beef stew, which is basically just ground beef in a pot that stews, or heart attack chicken. As you've probably seen, you get some beef tallow or lard, put it in a pot, and then get it hot enough to fry. And then you put your chicken pieces in there and it cooks right up. You can also do heart attack turkey. I made a video on that as well. You section your turkey up in pieces if you don't have one of those big fancy turkey pots, the ones that you can burn your house down with. And you just cut it in bite-sized pieces and put it on the stove and let it cook. And you can do the same thing with any meat that you like. And one of the oddball meats that I use, as you probably know, is iguana. So whenever there's iguanas running around the neighborhood and causing trouble, well, I'll catch one of them. And I have a video on that. I had one video where I had about 5 or 6 of them in my sink, and I was carving them up and I was frying them up. Sometimes I do boiled iguana, but you could do either boiled or heart attack iguana. And if I'm away, let's say I'm working or something like that, I'll have the meat in a cooler. And then what I do, I just use my portable propane grill, or I use my engine for cooking. Engine works good when you have to go any kind of distance, when you got to go like up to Palm Beach County or the Keys or something like that, and it's a long trip. You just throw your food on the engine and let it cook. And while you're working, it'll stay warm right on the engine block. So by the time that you have lunch, it's going to be ready to go and it's going to be delicious. So again, that's very simple. Um, in terms of other things, I mean, eggs, those are just fried in beef tallow, and I've done videos on that. Very simple. Pork chops generally will be cooked the same way. You put some beef tallow in the pan or in the griddle, and you throw the pork chops on there. When I used to cook bacon, I used to use a little convection oven that I have. It's a little round thing. I guess today you would call that an air fryer, but it was called the Aroma Convection Oven. It's from back in the 80s. I have that in one of my videos as well. Most of the cooking utensils and appliances I have here are quite old. I don't think there's anything from the 21st century. Everything I have is from the 20th century, starting in about the 1930s and working all the way up to maybe the 1990s. And it works. Those cast iron pans I have, those are quite old. I think one of them is almost 100 years old, and it still works. That's what I cook my eggs in. And again, it's great if you want to make a burger. There's Rick's Heart Attack Burger. Now, Rick's Heart Attack Burger is not fried. It's cooked on a pan or griddle. but those are 1/2 inch patties of ground beef. They got to be at least, let's say, 20% fat. You know, sometimes I get the, 27% fat. The fattier, the better. And you fry them up. I usually, because the pan can only hold 4 patties. So I'll fry 4 patties at once. And then I'll put my heart attack buns, one on each side, put 8 slices of cheese. And if I have it, I'll use bacon. And that's it. So my diet is really, really simple. There's nothing really exciting. And that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of my friends don't want to try the carnivore diet, because they say that I eat bland food. But then again, you know, I don't have anything against the keto recipes. That's fine if that's what you like to do. But in my case, I keep it simple. Fire and meat is basically the foundation of all my foods.
All right.
Yes.
Yep.
Someday we're going to have, I'm telling you, we need to do an engine block cooking workshop. And it could be like, bring your own cooler full of stuff, and we'll just like put it on there and then like drive around and sightsee Miami and then stop and have lunch on the beach. Like, can we do that? Can we get that booked? Okay. John, carnivore teacher.
All right. Well, Rick, I've always wondered, and then I'll start talking. How do you secure the food in the container on the engine block? How do you, without it jiggling and falling to the side and everything? Is there,
Well,
you have a bracket of some kind?
it depends. I do have a custom made bracket that I use on my truck. It's attached to the pot, but when I'm doing it impromptu, I actually made a video of that. And that was one for people that were trying to do it with what they had laying around. I used a coat hanger and some aluminum foil,
Okay.
and I tied the coat hanger to one of the injectors on my engine, and then wrapped the meat with the aluminum foil. And you can put paper in there if you don't want the meat to come in contact with the aluminum. But it doesn't really get that hot. I don't think there's really that much of a risk. But that's how I do it. And then the other way that I've done it is on the muffler or on the exhaust manifold directly. If you want to get a more barbecued flavor, yeah, it's hot. And then you can wrap that up with baling wire, just the regular wire that you use for tying things up. So you just have to wire it on. If you're going to do like a large piece of meat, the other option is, if you're using a gasoline engine, like all my stuff is old, you can actually set the container on the intake manifold and then lash it around the carburetor, or you can even attach it to the air filter. But with these new cars now, I don't know what you would do, because
No space. Everything's so jammed in there.
yeah, and they use a plastic air box, and the intake, the throttle body. I mean, I don't know if you could do it that well with the new cars, but with the old cars, I got it down to a science. I can show you exactly how to cook a beautiful meal on a 69 Charger, a 1990 F250, or even my van, my 98 van. I've already cooked on that. With the turbo, that gives it that extra cooking power. So you can turbo your food by tying it right next to the turbo, because that gets pretty hot. And contrary to popular belief, no, your food's not going to taste like engine oil, because if you use the right container, unless you're driving the biggest piece of junk in the world that's smoking like crazy, and then that's a problem. But there's actually a video from Gordon Ramsay where he cooked his meal on the engine. And there's a couple other people that have done it too. So I'm not the one that invented it, but I guess in the carnivore community, when you think of cooking on the engine, it's me.
You're the one that's making it popular. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm John Laspina. I'm the carnivore teacher on YouTube, and I'm going to go through a few things. Tonight we had hamburgers, plain old ground beef on the grill with salt. Absolutely delicious. Cheap, affordable. I do that a lot. But I'm going to go over some of my favorites. My absolute favorite that I'm loving to death, and I hate to jump the gun on Christy because I know what she's going to say, is picanha and standing rib roast, prime rib, and a cowboy ribeye, those big ribeyes with the bones sticking out that are really thick. Okay, so they're all three of the things I mentioned are basically roasts. They're thick. And we purchased a wireless thermometer that connects to your phone. Can't even see the phone with this blue screen. And so I put the wireless thermometer in the picanha or in the prime rib or in the cowboy ribeye. We put it on our Traeger grill, which is a wood pellet grill. So it's a smoker. Put it on at like 200, 220 degrees. And depending on, you don't have to worry about the timing. It just looks on your phone. You see when it reaches the temperature that you desire, which I like it between rare and medium rare. So that's 120 degrees. for beef. And my little alarm goes off. I go out and I take it off the smoker 3 hours, 4 hours later, depending on how big the roast is. Let it sit until it reaches 125 degrees. That's what's so great about having these wireless thermometers. You know exactly where you are. And then we look at the grain and we cut against the grain on a cutting board. And oh my gosh, I salivate. I made a video showing what we have for Thanksgiving. It's absolutely out of this world. And then I still slather butter on it and put my Redmond salt. And I'm just a pig in heaven. I just love it. It's the greatest food in the world. I could eat it for the rest of my life every day. But that stuff's expensive. So those are kind of treats, especially the prime ribs, pretty expensive, and the cowboy ribeye. But when I see them on sale, like at Walmart, whatever, I go by the pound, I buy them. I'll buy 5 of them if they're on sale. I put them in my deep freezer. So we have a couple prime ribs from Thanksgiving in the deep freeze. So we're going to have one for Christmas. The next one, and that's one of the links that Nia's going to put up, and that's my bone broth soup. So the bones I just mentioned, like in the cowboy ribeye, we also do beef ribs. All the bones, after we're done, go into a bag in the freezer. When the bag is full, I take out my crock pot. I don't like to use my Instapot hot pot. I just don't like that thing. I do everything the long, slow way. So a crock pot, 12 hours on high with just water, salt, and all the bones, and that's it. And then this is how I make the bone broth. And then I, scoop it all out and put it through a sieve and put them in glass mason jars in the refrigerator. The tallow rises to the top by the next day. All the gelatinized collagen bone broth is in there. And with that, I make a bone broth soup. So that's the base. This is a little more complicated, but I kind of just invented it and evolved as I kept doing it. And in that soup, I'll take 4 or 5 pasture-raised eggs and break them into the hot soup as it's bubbling. And I let the bone broth cook the eggs. Then I take 3 or 4 heaping tablespoons of grass-finished butter. All right, that's amazing. I put some salt in there. And then whatever I had the night before, whether it was ribeye or picanha or beef ribs, I cut them up on a cutting board and I throw that in there. And then in a cast iron pan, sometimes I'll either make some shrimp in bacon grease, wild caught shrimp, or some sockeye salmon where I half cook it. Then I put that in the bone broth, let the bone broth finish cooking it. When that's all finished, okay, I'll take some Parmesan cheese, put that, it's almost like a French onion soup, but it's not French onion. I get the Parmesan cheese and it gets all melted. I'm in heaven. This is the greatest soup I've ever had in my entire life. And it keeps getting better as I make little tweaks and changes. So my bone broth soup, I love it. I have it like every 3rd day because I have so much bone broth. Another thing I like to do is make chaffles. A lot of people in the carnivore and keto community know that a chaffle is like a waffle on a waffle iron. You basically here's an example. You take 1 egg, put it in a bowl, beat it up, and stick any kind of cheese that you want in there. I like mozzarella cheese or cheddar cheese, a little bit of salt. You can add other things if you want. You put that, I take a stick of butter and I butter my waffle iron, and it looks the texture, the sight, it's exactly like a waffle. So it gives you that texture, that feel. You can use it as the hamburger patties for your hamburger if you want. I use it to dip my melted cheese and my egg drippings sometimes. So I love this topic because whenever I talk about food, my face lights up. And when I listen to all your ways, I'm jotting down all these ideas on my paper here because I just love to come up with new ways for the carnivore diet. There's so many wonderful things that we can enjoy and be healthy, and that I wish the rest of the world understood how amazing it is.
Totally agree,
that's so
John.
True. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to take my turn. No need for Nia to be the host. I'm on it. No, I'm just kidding. John, I agree with you. I wish everyone would eat this way too, because people ask me like, don't you get bored? I'm like, heck no, I don't get bored. when Nia picked this topic, I thought it was fantastic. And I didn't think of like shouting out other channels like Robin, you're so awesome to think of others. I didn't do that. I was like, what do I have on my channel? You guys, I have a playlist. It's like recipes and grocery hauls together, but there are 75 videos in that playlist. So go check it out because there's a lot of recipes. There's not very many grocery hauls. It's almost all recipes. I can't believe I've done that many. And who knew Carnivore had 75 recipes, right? People think, aren't you going to get bored? So I didn't, I knew a lot of people would say the old standbys, the old favorites, the burger patties, like we've heard. I'm going to talk about picanha in a minute because I can't help myself. But and the steaks and things like that. I wanted to choose a little bit put a little bit of a different spin on the ones that I chose. So I don't know when it was. Several months ago, I had this idea for a recipe relay. So I'm going to start out with that. I thought it would be super fun. The first one turned out so well that we did a second installment. And I think we need to do a third one. So if you have an idea for me, put it in the chat for anything you would like to see done as a relay. The first one we did was meatloaf. And then the second one we did was baked eggs. So those are the two that have already been done. If you're interested in those, you can go check them out. And on that relay, on those relays, what we did was I went first and I cooked a very simple version. Well, that very simple meatloaf that I did for that first relay made my list of my favorite recipes. And here's why, because I am not, although I am not picky, my kids are picky. And so a lot of things I will eat because I could just do plain burger patties with salt and be happy. My kids won't do that. But this meatloaf, even my non-carnivore kid who just still kind of eats standard American, I have one kid that's gone carnivore and one that hasn't yet. Both of those kids love that meatloaf. And I think I got the original serving when I tasted it for that video and they ate the rest of it. So they were like reheating the leftovers for a day or two after. Super good. And then they requested that I make it again. So I've been making that for them and I won't even touch it because I'm like, if you'll eat it, I'm happy eating something more simple. Once I put that together, you got food, for a couple of days. But even the simple version, and Robin did a version and Nia did a version. I think I saw Ellie in the chat. She did a version. So if you want to do a more complicated version, each person in the relay added something, or even I think we had a couple that weren't even meatloaf shaped because they changed the form or the shape of that recipe. It was super cool. And if you go to my channel and watch mine, all the links are there too for the next, like you can see all of the links to all of the meatloaf videos in that description if you're interested. But I'm telling you, both of my kids, I have 2 teenagers, that recipe was a winner for sure. The next one is a spin on heart attack chicken, and I'm going to call it a spin because it's not fried. It's actually in the air fryer, but my tasty air fryer just does a better job than I have like a different air fryer that's like, I don't know, the style with the French doors on it. And it's like super expensive and fancy. And it just doesn't do as good of a job as my tasty does. And so I thought, let me try these chicken wings in the air fryer. So I bought a bunch of chicken wings. I melted some beef tallow. This is why it's like heart attack chicken, because I melted a bunch of beef tallow. And then I poured the beef tallow over the chicken wings. And for my son, he uses a little more, he'll use a few more spices than me. If it was just for me, I'd probably just do salt. But because it was for him, I did some onion, granulated onion and granulated garlic and also salt with that beef tallow. And then the beef tallow, it does a beautiful job of helping all those spices to stick to the chicken. And then when you put it in that air fryer, it gets super crispy because of the beef tallow. It's delicious. Again, I think the first time I made it, I thought, well, I'll eat half and save half for Zach. No, I ate them all. Zach got 0. 0 chicken wings. But the next time I made them, I said, these are all for you. And he ate all 7. It was 7 chicken wings, not party wings, like full-size chicken wings. And he ate all 7. And he's not a big eater. He eats, but I mean, like to eat a big meal, he would rather eat, smaller amounts. He's never eaten 7 pieces of chicken in one sitting. He ate all 7. He didn't leave any for me. And I was like, I'm fine with that because I ate them all last time. So that one is a winner. I've made that multiple times. And I think Nia has put links to all of these down below. And I don't think you have to have a tasty air fryer. That's just the one I have. And it does a great job. The next one I want to talk about is one I did a while back with my friend Lori. We did a short series of videos, and it was basically like, hey, if we can do it, you can do it. It was called Cooking on the Fly with Christy and Lori. It's like, we don't even know what we're doing half the time, but we're going to put this stuff together. And the cool thing about that series is we each cooked something. So I made something and she made something. So in this video, she made the chicken crust pizza. And then I made the garlic cloud bread to go with it. So I think it was Bruce that talked about cloud bread. I actually really enjoyed the cloud bread because, yes, it was the egg whites with the cream cheese, but we brushed, like heavily brushed, like brush is maybe poured is a better word, butter on the top of that with a little garlic in there. And it was delicious. And I know in that video, you'll see at the end, Lori's, I think, grandson was staying with them. And he's just like Standard American Diet cake. He couldn't tell that that was chicken crust. Like he was like, this just tastes like pizza. And he was just eating it. And I know too, my husband and both of my kids really, really enjoyed that pizza and garlic bread. So I don't get that fancy for myself just because, yes, it was some work. But if you have some picky kids, that one was a winner. Another one is, of course, picanha. You're not going to hear about any recipes or what Christy's favorite food is without me saying picanha. And so my picanha, John puts butter on at the end after he smokes it. I put butter on at the beginning. So I usually keep it as a roast. As John said, it is a roast. And I just I soften some butter and just slather the outside of that with butter. And then I sprinkle it all around with Redmond's hickory smoked salt. So John actually has a smoker. I don't, but I do use smoked salt to get a little bit of that flavor in there. And then depending on the weight of the picanha, you put it in a really hot oven, 500 degrees for 5 minutes per pound. So if it's 3 pounds, that's 15 minutes. And then you turn off the oven and you just let it sit in there. The oven will gradually cool off. Don't open the door and let the heat out. Just let it stay in there. And probably if you had one of those meter thermometers, that would be helpful, but I don't. And I've just kind of figured it out for my oven. So for me, it turns out perfect every time. But that is an absolutely delicious way to eat picanha. Lately, because I've wanted picanha during the week, like I'll make that on the weekend because it's easy, but it just has to sit there for a while. And I don't want to wait that long on a weeknight. I've been cutting the picanha into steaks and then just putting them in the air fryer like Robin was talking about, although they're not frozen, but oh my gosh, it turns out so good that way. And my son's been enjoying them that way too. So I think I'm going to do that for dinner a little bit later. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was my son, who at the time was 15. He's now 16, who is very picky and has texture issues. He went from Standard American Diet to Carnivore Diet. And he just did that like with the flip of a switch in February. And he is still eating a carnivore diet, and we're now in December. So he's coming up on his 1-year carniversary. He said he would do a live stream with me when he hits that 1-year carniversary. So stay tuned for that. But I have been asked multiple times by people like, well, how in the heck did you do that? My kid's not going to eat ribeye. And I'm like, my kid's not going to eat ribeye either. And for sure, at the beginning, he wouldn't have eaten picanha. He wouldn't have eaten chuck roast. He wouldn't have even eaten those chicken wings. He wouldn't have eaten any of that stuff. And so I started by transitioning him with recipes like that meatloaf recipe. That was one of the first meats that we tried with him. But we tried chicken nuggets because he was very used to eating. He would eat chicken nuggets several times a week, but like the bad ones with the breading and the seed oils and all of that. And so my recipe for chicken nuggets that I made was, again, a winner with both of my kids. Both of my kids will eat these like they're going out of style. And it's just ground chicken, some pork panko, some Parmesan cheese, some bacon bits. And then you just air fry them. And they are absolutely delicious. And both of my kids love those. I haven't made those for my son recently because he started off with those, but now he's transitioned. So his favorites are now things like chuck roast, but he didn't start off that way. It was like this kind of natural transition that happened. And the other thing was I guess they're ketovore. It depends on if you put the tomato sauce in there, if they're ketovore or carnivore. But if you leave the tomato sauce out, they'd be carnivore, but they're pizza pockets because he was very used to eating those hot pockets. From the freezer aisle as well. And so that one, the pizza pockets are just a slice of, I just get the pre-sliced mozzarella cheese, put it on the bottom. I always have about a pound of sausage. I cook it up a pound at a time. It's like the Italian ground sausage. And so he just takes a couple spoonfuls of that, puts in a few slices of pepperoni, a little bit of the Rayo's marinara sauce, which is a marinara sauce that a lot of people that eat keto or ketovore will use. And then he'll put that slice of mozzarella cheese on top and just bake them. And so it kind of melts, the cheese melts together and it seals all that stuff on the inside, and you can just pick them up and eat them. I haven't even tried them. They always look and smell delicious, but he loves those. And if there's no leftovers in the fridge, like I said, I always have that sausage in there for him, and he just can make them himself. So he'll just make 3 or 4 of those, put them on a baking sheet, bake those up, and they're done in like 5 minutes. Super easy. And it was a great transition food for my kiddo, going from standard American to carnivore. So there you go. Those are my favorites.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I love the kid-friendly videos too, because that's so helpful. Because we always think about, oh, what do we like? But if you've got a family and you've got picky people, or you're trying to, maybe not have them be like strict carnivore 100% of the time, like, there's some other recipes that are definitely needed. So those are super helpful. All right, Papa Carnivore.
Okay, so are you all ready to hear about Papa Carnivore's world famous French Brie burgers? How's that sound? Anybody like Brie, French Brie, real Brie cheese? No? Oh, Nia? Oh, I see Robin. Well, so here's what I do. I take my burger. I take my Griswold vintage, Rick, you're going to love this, a vintage Griswold number 8 cast iron skillet. This thing's ancient. God knows how old. It's got to be, I don't know, 50 years old. I have no idea. I got it on eBay. You heat that up, put in some beef tallow, let that get nice and hot. Nice, big, thick piece of burger patty. Let that grill up nicely, both sides. Then what you do is we cook up on the side in a separate pan 2 or however many you want. I do 3 fried eggs, fried in grass-fed butter, right? With a little bit of salt on that, some Redmond's real salt. What I do, I then take some Brie cheese and I lay that right over the burger. Let that melt down a little bit. I pull that out, put it on a plate. Then I put some additional Irish butter, let that melt right into the top of the burger and the Brie cheese, lay those eggs over top. You've never tasted anything like it. That cheese melts underneath the heat of the eggs. Unbelievable. And I use a fork and a knife and I cut it just cut it right up. And I love to mix all the, I make the fried eggs like medium over so that they're, the yolk is still, liquid to a degree, but I like the white part nice and cooked. So that's a French Brie burger. The other thing that I like to make, and I know it's kind of boring, you guys have your picanha, so I'm going to talk about my T-bones. You guys all know my favorite steak is a T-bone. So I take, again, my Griswold number 8, put in my beef tallow, and I cook that, and I get it really hot. So, and I do about 5 minutes per side. I don't even use a thermometer anymore. I just kind of do it. I just kind of know by the consistency of the meat when it's done. But you crisp it nice and crispy on each side. I like the center to be kind of rare in the middle, but each side's real crispy. Then what I do is I melt a little bit of the grass-fed butter on top of the steak just to get it nice and glistening. Then I take the Malden smoked sea salt flakes, which I love, and I sprinkle that on top. And then I take the grass-fed butter cold, and I slices on the side. And with every bite of steak, I eat a little piece of that cold butter. Oh my God, the cold butter melting at the same time with that hot steak. You have never tasted anything like that. I am addicted to the cold butter with the steak, little piece with every bite. Now remember, T-bone is the New York strip on one side and the filet on the other. So those are more less fatty cuts of meat than say a ribeye. So you really need to add some butter to it. So it's really incredible. I like ribeyes, but I love New York strip and T-bones. So I know that's kind of boring. My diet, I don't have all the funky recipes. I don't have the heart attack chicken. I don't have the Boca lizard pie. I don't have any of those things, but I have my T-bone and I got my French brie burgers.
I mean, the brie burgers, that's a little fancy. Like I wouldn't call that boring by any means. I love brie. I don't eat much dairy because I feel like most of the time it doesn't agree with me, but
Oh, you got
that
to
is
put
something I
brie on
would
the
eat.
burger. Oh, you've never had anything like it with some eggs on top?
Yeah, and it's good like a higher fat content cheese
Yeah.
too, I feel like. So,
Yeah.
yeah, those I think everyone is all hungry. We're all hungry now. Everyone in the chat sounds like they're hungry. I didn't think I was hungry until I came on here, but now I am. So, mine yeah, overall I'm a pretty simple person. I don't mind eating kind of the same thing day to day. So, I have a few staples. And, if anyone's been on my channel hanging around for any length of time, you know that I actually prefer like ground beef or like burger patties, even to steak most days. And so that's a lot of, what's made up my diet over the last year. And one of my favorite ways to eat ground beef is just with raw egg yolks on top. So kind of like you were talking, Papa Carnivore, with the cold and the hot contrast, and like the texture of raw egg yolks it's so creamy. It's like a delicious sauce. I've tried whipping up like hollandaise and all this kind of stuff too with the butter in it, but it's like really it's so easy to just throw some raw egg yolks over your ground beef or steak or anything like that. So that's probably one of the things I've eaten a lot of. Now I go back and forth where I'm eating eggs or not eating eggs, but I don't eat the whites at all really ever, but sometimes I'll throw in some yolks if they sound appealing. And then everybody probably knows too, but I'm like, my whole family is just in love with jerky. Like I make ground beef jerky all the time, and brisket jerky is Ben's favorite, oddly enough, because like it's not lean. Like I slice it with the big fat chunks on it and put that in there, and the fat just turns into like, it's crispy on the outside, and then when you bite into it, especially if it's warm right out of the dehydrator, it's like that melty. It's like eating like some kind of how chocolate would sort of like the crispy outer shell and like the inside would be like oozy and yummy. That's what this fat is like. And if you put the right amount of salt, it's like literally there's like a bliss point, I think, for that salty like brisket fat that's crispy on the outside, super like delicious on the inside. So everybody in my family loves the jerky. So I'm constantly putting things in the dehydrator. It's probably my number one used appliance. The close second would be the air fryer. I love, like was already mentioned, chicken wings in the air fryer or chicken thighs. The skin on chicken thighs, I will usually get those because they're nice and fatty. Or if you really want something affordable, the whole leg quarters. You can get like a bag of whole leg quarters for like, I don't know, $1 a pound, $1.29 a pound. Sometimes I see them around here. And that's all the skin, all the bones. So you can take the bones and recycle them into broth later. You can fry the skin separately if you want, and make little crispy chips. You can make shredded chicken and turn that into a bunch of stuff. So that's a super affordable kind of staple meat that we do. And I know it's not like the best quality ever, but it's there as an affordable option too if you need it. And I think it's delicious. So those are things I eat a lot. And from the pork side of things, I love ribs. Like I love putting ribs in the slow cooker. It's so easy, and then finish them in the air fryer. That's kind of been my combo, because or you could put them in the oven and then broil them to get them crispy on the top. But especially since I'm not adding barbecue sauce or a rub with sugar or any spices to them at all, I will just let them cook with some water in the slow cooker, and then cut them up and throw them in the air fryer and either smother them with butter or tallow, and then they get that nice crispy crust on the top with salt, and they're absolutely divine. So those are probably the things that really have gotten me through the year, affordable and easy. But then I have a kid too, and I have a partner who is, eats a lot of meat, but he doesn't eat 100% carnivore. And so sometimes he looks at me and, and it's like, we're having ground beef again. Like, can we have, something different? And so, I'll try to throw in some of these creative things every once in a while. And that's where the recipe relays really helped me out this year. So shout out again to Christy and for that idea. That was an excellent idea because it just kind of forced me to get a little creative and say, oh, what can I, change here? How can I change? Even changing the form of something, the way you make it in a muffin cup versus a loaf pan or a meatball, it's just like that can change the way the meal feels and how you can kind of garnish it for other people. And so like that was really helpful. So I listed a couple things. Breakfast crepes was something that I learned to make this year that again is like very versatile. It's just egg whites and grass-fed beef gelatin that you can buy on Amazon in a little bag. And you just mix that up and it kind of makes it really easy to create like a very thin crepe in a pan. And then you just fill that sucker with cheese or leftover ground meat, or I put some fruit in there for my little one, like sausage and berries, I think, sausage and strawberry and cream cheese or something I did with hers. And then you just roll them up and it's like, a little toothpick Sunday brunch fancy thing that you can throw out there that just makes you feel like, oh, I'm having something different. So there's, I think I linked that one. I linked my ground beef jerky video in case anybody hasn't seen it. It's so easy. And that is a huge staple here. And then really the thing that I kind of splurge on or will throw out there and do, spend a little extra time or money on is seafood. Because I really like seafood and I like good seafood. So, sometimes if we go out, that's what I'll get is like, raw scallops or raw oysters or something I will drop a little bit of money on from time to time because it's not something I can really make at home too easily. But at home, I like to cook scallops or shrimp or we like fish here too, like a nice wild caught salmon with the skin on. So those are the things that I will, throw in that are still pretty easy to make. And adds, more well-rounded nutrition too, I think, and a little bit of palate change for the palate sometimes. And then there's so much you can do with seafood too. You can make, a butter sauce. You can do cheese, like things like that to make it interesting. So those are probably my top favorites. Let's see, what else did I write down? I think that's it. So yeah, I threw a question out here. I thought, if anybody in the chat would answer this, where did it go? Did anyone answer it? Because, we've got all this variety, all these different amazing recipes. But if you were stranded on a desert island somewhere and you could only eat one carnivore meal, it could be any recipe, fancy, simple, expensive, not expensive, one meal until somebody found you and rescued you, what would it be?
Can I answer for Christy? Can I answer for Christy? I know what it is. Picanha.
You can say it at the same time.
It's got to be. And for me, it's a T-bone.
Really? Okay. Yeah, I don't have a banner. I don't have a picanha banner like you all do on Tuesdays, so I'm not prepared for that. But yeah, what would you all say? What's your number one favorite thing to eat?
If I was on a deserted island, it would be fish. I would be hunting fish. I would build a fire and I would cook. I would be very happy and content eating fish and the skin off the fish. I love fish skin. A lot of people skeeve that. I love it. I love fish skin. I'm like you, Nia. I didn't even mention that. Love shrimp and scallops and anything I can get my hands on. I love oysters. Oh, I'm salivating thinking about it. Don't get to eat that too much, but Pete knows how much I love seafood because when we met in person for the first time eating seafood.
A chance meeting.
Yeah, that was fun.
In fact, John was the first carnivore I ever met.
Oh, wow. I'm honored.
Yep.
And I met your mom, too. We got to get her on board.
And guess what? I forgot to tell you, John, for the past month, she's been doing keto.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
So she's almost carnivore. I mean, she's doing really well.
That's great. She's going to notice a difference.
84 years old.
God bless her. She looked I would say 60. Really
Yeah.
healthy looking woman. Yeah. Anybody else? Rick, what would
Well-
you have if you were stuck on a deserted island?
Well, a tropical island. Well,
Yeah.
I guess it'd be full of delicious iguanas and
Ah, there
Muscovy
you go.
duck. But not. I mean, I like seafood as well. I mean, if there was cattle on there, I would definitely go for
Yeah, oh,
beef
yeah.
because, I'd like to have steak every day. That seems to be the meat that agrees the most with me. But hey, if I was on an island and all they had was iguanas, I could deal with them. The only problem is where am I going to get the beef tallow to cook them in?
Mhm.
So I'd have to have boiled iguana every day.
Probably dig up some mussels. And the one thing I never did in Florida, you guys got to tell me, you Florida people, if you've ever done it, is go scallop diving. Like you can go on like with a guide and and a snorkel and they'll like take you down and you can go dive for scallops and then eat them. And I was like, that sounds like a super fun thing to do, but I never did it. But I know a couple people that did while I lived there.
I've never done it. I know people that do. They get conchs down in the Keys. They're all over the ocean floor, and it's so cool to see them in their natural habitat. And scallops. So, I mean, a lot of people don't know what the scallop shells look like. They only see scallops on the plate. They're so good.
I don't know how it would work with spearfishing. I mean, that would be another thing. My big concern being on a desert island, how are we going to refrigerate beef? There's that.
Well, this is totally just, you have a refrigerator, someone's hunting for you. You just have to choose one meal. So like, what could you eat on repeat and never get sick of, basically?
Ground beef.
See,
I'm a big fan of ground beef in many forms. So
Ground beef is great because it has the fat built in.
yes.
That's true, but I have to say, I ate a lot of ground beef in the beginning of carnivore, and then I got this ground beef aversion. Like I was totally couldn't eat it. I was like, nope. And then I didn't eat any for a long time. And then that's part of what gave me the idea for the recipe relay. Cause I'm like, how can I bring ground beef back in a way that's not going to gross me out? And it was that meatloaf that did it. And I'm back to it now. Like I could totally eat a ground beef bowl, a power bowl or whatever and be fine. But yeah, there was a few months there where I was like, nope. It just sounded so awful to me.
So Tharty, I dislike the metallic taste of most organ meat. I don't know what it is. My body doesn't like it, but I have found that I do enjoy cod liver. And I get cod liver in the cans that come in its own cod liver oil. So I have cans. I have a couple a week, like 1 or 2 cans of cod liver a week. I just love it. I have it with my eggs. I don't mix it in the eggs. I have it on the side. It's creamy. It's delicious. I don't have an aversion to that. Any of you guys do organ meat at all?
I get the liver through, like, if I have some Braunschweiger or a liverwurst, I like. But I don't like just liver. Deli chop, chopped liver, like Jewish deli chopped liver is very good. I guess they use egg and onion in that. But I can't just eat the raw, Now I do I don't know if this is considered organs, but the chicken gizzards and hearts.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's considered organ meat, but I love those.
Yeah, chicken heart's pretty healthy for you.
Yeah, I like a good pate. I've always kind of liked that. And it's kind of hard to find, without onion or a bunch of wine and, all that stuff in it. But actually, Ben, where he works, they make oh my gosh, I want to say goose liver, but maybe that's wrong. They make a special pate because he makes sushi, but it's like these super fancy, like decorative, crazy 9 ingredient pieces of nigiri. So it's like one has pate on it. So they make it in-house. And he said it's just liver and salt. And I think maybe some cooking wine or sake or something, but obviously the alcohol gets cooked off, but it's so I think it's 3 ingredients. So I'm like, maybe I might try some of that. sometime. Because I'll look at it at the store, you know, and it's always got a bunch of ingredients,
It does,
seasoning,
yeah.
and all this stuff in there. So I usually don't buy it. But I thought, or if I could learn to make it with, you know, very little ingredients, like I would probably try that, because I think that's really good. And then you can make meat chips. I did these for Thanksgiving, where you can either do ground beef and just like roll it get it as thin as possible, and then just dehydrate the living crap out of it for like 14 hours or more, and then they'll be just flaky, like they taste just like chips. Or I kind of cheated and got just roast beef from the deli, sliced thin, and threw that in the dehydrator, and they came out great with just a little extra salt. They were super crunchy like chips. You could make a sour cream dip or a cream cheese dip or a pate or something like that, and use those as the little scoops instead of crackers or veggie chips or whatever. So yeah, isn't this amazing? Like there's literally all kinds of things you can do. And you go into this thinking, oh, I'm so limited and I can only eat meat and that's it, but it's like, really, you can get very creative if you want to, and you can find fun things to substitute for holidays. And that's kind of the time we're in. And so that's the other reason why I wanted to do this episode during this time, is to kind of just give everybody some ideas. And like I said, you think, oh, carnivore, right? There's 5 options. But I remembered some things just going through listening to all you tonight, that it's like, oh yeah, I could do that. Or, oh yeah, I could make that. Carnivore lasagna is another one. I forgot to mention that. I think I've maybe tried once in the very beginning. I think I'm going to make that for Christmas. Maybe a ketovore one with some red sauce in it. And then, maybe like a carnivore version, because they can eat the red sauce. Anywho, we're kind of getting close to the hour here, so I want to respect everybody's time. But I was looking for some, desert island choices in here. I guess we got some beef, a couple of ribeyes, and what else? Anybody else have a final thought or comment? Oh, here we have, somebody who enjoys Cranky Carnivore Cutler.
We had
Fried
Cami.
chicken for visits
She was on last night. She is known for canning and jarring all of her food and preserving, so she would survive on this deserted island better than all of us. And she would have a lot to say on this topic. I wish she was here for this, but I'm glad we did this topic, because if somebody's watching this, those people that criticize and say you don't have much to eat when you only eat animal, but look at all the things we can have. Look at all the things we can do with all of the animal products that we have in fat. And it's so absolutely satisfying. And the most important thing is this is sustainable. All right. This is not a diet. This is going to last until the day we die. We will enjoy it. And it's 100% nutritious. There's nothing bad about it. There's like all benefits and no negative points to eating this diet.
Yeah, I want to just say I absolutely look forward to my meals, whether it be my breakfast, the eggs and bacon, or sometimes I'll have like Nova lox with, which I love, smoked salmon. But whatever it is, and then my dinner, I look forward to, whether it's burgers and eggs, whether it's steak, whatever it is, fish, shrimp. I almost have to pinch myself. I told my mom this the other night, is that what kind of diet can you go on where you can literally eat until you're full? I eat 2 meals a day. I know, Rick, you do 3. I don't know what the rest of you guys do, but sometimes I'll have 3 meals a day, if I feel like it. But I do not hold back. I eat until I'm absolutely full and completely satisfied. And I eat all the things that I just absolutely loved, not only as a kid, but I always loved eggs. I always loved bacon, sausage, whatever. I always loved seafood. And I always loved burgers, and I always loved steak. So for me, I'm in paradise. All I need is an iguana.
Yeah, I've never had iguana either. I've had gator, you know, and calamari is good. It's usually always fried when you get it at a restaurant, but I want to throw this up here quick. Sherry's here and wanted to share one of her recipes. Sherry has a channel. So I will leave this. I'm looking for it right now to put the link in the description. So you can make bread out of egg yolks and ghee, and it's amazing. So thanks, Sherry, for sharing that. And I will throw that link in the comments as well. And yeah, bread recipe. So, you know, I have just saying, I've never had luck with these bread recipes. I just feel like even the cloud bread and stuff, I whip the eggs. I even tried the cream of tartar once and it just falls flat. And they come out like, you know, they like might be a little poofy for a minute, but then they're just like, wah, 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 and I just can't ever get it right to where it's good. And my kid kind of is like, she'll literally go like, "It's good, mom," and then run away. And I'm like, "No, you don't like it." So I need to work on those. Maybe I'll try. I haven't tried that one yet. Egg yolks and ghee. So we'll see. Okay. And then we have some jokes. Is this a joke? I don't know. Rick's my wingman, especially when he's buying at Buffalo Wild Wings. Yes. We've eaten at Buffalo Wild Wings like 3 times in the last month, I'd say, because they're the tallow frying place. So sometimes I get on a wing thing and I'm like, I just want all the wings. And so we go there sometimes if we don't have any in the house.
Yeah, the
But,
last time I had wings is when it was on sale at Presidente for 50 cents a pound. I think I ate 10 pounds of wings.
yeah, it's, you know, there's all the bones in there. So like half of it's bone and all that kind of stuff. So I can plow through some wings too. Okay. Anybody else have final thoughts, comments? Like I said, pretty much everything we talked about is in the description for you. So you can check out any of these recipes. Make sure to follow everybody on here who's linked below that's got a channel. And if you're watching the replay, leave us your recipes too, so we can all share and have some wonderful new ideas to make stuff for the rest of this year. And this has been a great year, right? I feel like, you know, made a lot of progress, learned a lot, gotten healthier. And thank you to all of you too who come on this show, have come on all year and contributed to the group and shared your time and advice and experience with everybody. I appreciate all of you. And thanks everybody in the chat for being supportive as well and sharing your thoughts and experiences. So final thoughts, anybody, before we sign off?
I think it was a great video. Can't wait to try some of these recipes.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you,
Thanks for having
everybody.
fun,
And
Mia.
yeah, of course. And we'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll have one, it'll be the day after Christmas. So if anybody's out and about day after Christmas, we'll be here again for another live. And thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.